Yes? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, buenos días a todos. Buenos días a todos vosotros. Gracias por venir a esta sexta jornada de empresas familiares en el mundo. Ahora me pasaré a hablar en inglés porque como tenemos aquí a nuestros ponentes invitados, pues por deferencia a ellos haremos como siempre solemos hacer en esta jornada internacional, haremos la jornada en inglés, aunque sabéis todos que tenéis aquí fuera unos aparatos de traducción simultánea. En el caso de que alguien los necesite, pues están a vuestra disposición. Vale. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks Thomas and Ivan for coming to Valencia to this event. This event of family firms from the world that we started in 2018. Already, this is the 6th edition of the event. We only stopped during the pandemic. It was an initiative was aimed to invite professors from other countries specialized in family firms in order to learn from what's going on in other places, and not only learning from what's around us and what we can learn from people around our own family firms, but also getting international experiences and so on. So after this 6th edition, in the previous editions, we invited, you already know, many prestigious professors. We have 2 more here today. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for sharing with us your knowledge. The difference this year with regard to the previous events is that we typically, the original idea was to learn from what's going on in a country. What about family firms in Germany, in Italy, in Sweden, in Belgium, in the United States, in the Emirates, in many different places, France, United Kingdom, many different places. And Netherlands, lots of different countries, even Colombia. And the original idea was to learn about the reality on those places and learning about practices, about governance practices, about strategies, about the different characteristics of family firms and so on. But this year we thought that it could be, after 5th edition, after 5 editions, it could be a good idea to focus the topic on something, just instead of just continue learning about what's going on in different places, to focus on a specific topic. And this is a double challenge because then you have to select professors who are experts in a topic and that can also talk about the situation of family firms in their country at the same time. That's not difficult because you know very well your reality. So we decided that one of the main challenges that family firms will have to deal with in the next years will be digitalization. And then we invited Ivan Mirovchinenko and Thomas Klaus, who have done lots of research on digitalization of family firms. Ivan is coming from Switzerland, from IMD, very prestigious business school. And Thomas is coming from WIFU, the WIFU Center for Family Firms in Witten-Herdecke University. And both of them came to Valencia several months ago for the summit we organized this year that was a great success of attendance and learning from each other. So today we are going to listen them about these experiences they've got doing research about digitalization of family firms. We'll start with Thomas, and then Ivan will continue with their presentations. And after that, we will have a roundtable, and we invited Carlos Albors from Group Layex and Consuelo Baquer from Nirval Cosmetics, who will also tell us about their experiences as family firms who are investing and developing digitalization strategies with different sizes of companies, with different levels of expertise on the topic, but this is exactly what we want to see. so that at a certain point you may be very advanced on digitalization strategies, but you have to start from the very beginning, and you have to start investing in data collection, you have to start investing in technology, in hardware, software, and people who will help you to go step by step improving on those stages. And so this is why we have different types of companies that will talk also about their experiences on this topic, and we will have the opportunity to share these insights with Ivan and Thomas all together. So thank you very much for your presence and for coming to this interesting event. And now I would like to give the word to Thomas Klaus to listen to your presentation. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you.
Do I have a...
Yeah, it's here. Screen for going forward.
Yeah, good morning. It's my pleasure being here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as said, I'm Thomas Klaus, and I would like to talk a little bit about the digitalization in family businesses with some empirical insights from Germany. That's myself. I'm currently full professor and chair in corporate entrepreneurship and digitalization in family businesses at the Witten Institute for Family Business. We are kind of an interdisciplinary institute at Witten University, looking into the particularities of family firms with insights into psychology of the family, sociology of the family. We have a law professor at our institute, and I'm representing the business part here. I don't want to go through the details. I spent some time in Denmark. Initially, I am an industrial engineer, and I always work closely with business practice. And yeah, so you also see my contact information here. If there's anything you would like to know as a follow-up, of course, you can always reach out, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions. So what am I going to talk about? First, I would like to set the stage for the question: what is, in general, digitalization? What is the challenges of family firms? And then I would like to present the results of a larger study that we conducted in Germany last year, in total with about 520 firms that we surveyed from the German Mittelstand to see, okay, what is the status of family firms regarding digitalization. And then at the end, I would like to look a little bit into, okay, what are the implications for family businesses? What should you do in order to improve your ability to digitalize? So if we talk about digitalization, yeah, digitalization is kind of a buzzword. Alejandro just said, yeah, that's one of the challenges ahead. And there are actually many things going on. Yeah, there are lots of new technologies coming out every year. Yeah, about a year ago, we saw the emergence of ChatGPT 3.5. Yeah, and all the opportunities and challenges related to Gen AI, for instance. Yeah. Then we see that companies are collecting data. Yeah, these devices here are equipped with lots of different sensors. Yeah, they are connected to other devices. Yeah, everything gets together, and this is not just something we see in a private world where your cell phone is connected to your smart home and so on. But it's also something related for companies. Yeah, suddenly companies are more embedded into ecosystems where, because of the Internet of Things, certain devices come together, create data. Artificial intelligence may offer opportunities for analyzing these data, for optimized decision making, and so on. And you could add multiple more digital technologies here. We could talk about blockchain, we could talk about, 3D printing, and so on. Many things are actually happening. Yeah? And the thing is that, as compared to what we know what we observed in the past, these digital technologies can be applied to quite many things, and they are often quite complex. Yeah, they are not like, I don't know, in the past where you bought a machine and you had a clear return on invest calculation. Here it's more differentiated. Yeah, so what is the purpose of these things? What can we do with it? It's not often clear, and it's not really in line with what many firms were actually used to do in the past. If we talk about digitalization, yeah, I'm an academic, I would like to just briefly look into what are we talking about. And for this study, we defined digital transformation as basically fundamental changes in the corporate world through the establishment of new technologies. Yeah, so what the question basically, how can digital technologies be utilized in order to change businesses? And I think one thing which is kind of important, if we talk about digitalization, it's not always digital transformation. Yeah, basically it starts all with digitization. Yeah, the question, how can we transfer previously analog data into digital data? And it's basically something that also firms need to do in the very first stage, yeah, that you translate your analog data, your paper-based things into digital data, to make them available, to utilize them for further processes. The next stage then, it's called the digitalization, which would be the digitalization of processes. Yeah, you have existing structures, you have existing processes. Yeah, you ask yourself, okay, how can we use digital technologies to make those digital? And you create interfaces also across the different departments of your firm. Maybe if you have international subsidiaries, yeah, you need to connect them as well to make those now digital data available to the firm and to for instance, automate decision making. And then the last stage would be something we call digital transformation. So the question, how can we create new business opportunities? How can we create new bases for competitive advantages by utilizing digital technologies? And this may still be in line with what the company did in the past, but may also be something fundamentally different. Yeah, we see, for instance, lots of companies that now go more, like traditional manufacturing firms, that now go more into service operations. Yeah, that say, okay, we have our machines equipped with sensors. Yeah, we can provide our customers dashboards. We can do predictive maintenance, and so we can sell, entirely different solutions that were not in our portfolio recently. And this situation, this digital transformation now meets the particularities of family firms. So family firms, I don't want to spend much time here, but those firms where the company is owned by family members take responsibility in the firm. They are often involved in certain management positions, and there's one of the defining characteristics is the transgenerational intent. Yeah, so that those family members would like to hand over the firm to later generations, to the next, to their kids, and to keep the company alive on a long-term basis. And this, from an academic perspective, comes with certain particularities. Yeah? So I don't want to talk too much about this, but family firms are known to have specific goals. Yeah? So for instance, the transgenerational intent leads to a situation that family firms are very long-term oriented, and sometimes would not take short-term opportunities because they see that the value on a long-term basis may be higher. Yeah. Family firms or leaders in family firms are often closely connected to their firms. Yeah, there is this concept of socio-emotional wealth that for you as a family firm leader, it's not only the financial value that is related to your position, but also it gives you identity. Yeah, you are bound to the tradition of the firm. Yeah, you identify yourself quite closely with the firm, and this changes the course of action of family businesses. The second part here is then the structures. Yeah. Family firms are often organized in a way that very few people can make tough decisions, can allocate budgets relatively flexibly, and the organization is related to very few decision makers. So actually, therefore, decisions, if people really buy into an idea to change the course of action, can be made relatively fast. And the last aspect is the resources. Family firms are known to be relatively independent from external money givers. So usually there is sufficient money in the firm available. And also family firms are known to have intangible resources, yeah, good networks, close relationships to customers, and so on. So, and this is the situation which now comes together with the digitalization. Yeah? On the one hand, we have new technologies, complex technologies that on the one hand create opportunities, but on the other hand can also be threatening because there are startups out there who may understand technologies much better and to push into markets and suddenly change the things that you were used to in the past. And on the other hand, we have the family firms that are more hesitant towards significant change, that are more bound to tradition, that focus more on the long-term development, but could technically be relatively agile because of their decision-making structures. And the question we asked in this study is, okay, what happens if these two situations come together? Yeah, and therefore we conducted a study. You could actually download the study, but unfortunately it was only published in German. So I think I just focus on presenting the results here to you in English. Maybe very briefly. Some insights into the previous research, which is actually kind of interesting. There's some other studies out there, and the interesting aspect here, if we just focus on these two in the center, there are on the one hand studies that show that family firms are actually more or better in conducting or in changing towards digitalization. Yeah? Ivan was involved in one of these projects, showing that family firms are better equipped in changing their business model towards a digital business model. And on the other hand, there are studies where that showed actually that family involvement hinders this kind of development. And we asked basically the question, okay, what is the situation in Germany? Yeah, so, and that is the core of the study we conducted. Yeah, we wanted to understand, okay, what is the status quo of digitalization in German family businesses? And then to dig a little bit deeper to understand the underlying motives and influencing factors, and see also if digitalization at the end leads to performance. So what did we do? We basically screened firms in several manufacturing-oriented industries and collected an initial sample of about 11,000 firms that fulfilled those criteria here on the left-hand side. Yeah, they were all active. They were all in Germany. They were all related to the manufacturing industry. More in a like small and mid-sized size, between 50 and 3,000 employees. They were all at least 10 years old, and we did not look into any kind of subsidy, but they were all like the main firms here. Out of these, we selected 525 companies that we surveyed. And as you can see in the later part of the study, we then separated those into those which had at least 5% family ownership versus non-family businesses. And then we digged a little bit deeper into the particularities of their digitalization. This was done via a telephone survey, about 30 minutes, with lots of different questions. I don't want to go into the details of this. What you can see is that these are the characteristics of the survey that we finally collected. We had companies between 12 years and 312 years at the end in our survey, so kind of a large variety of ages, between 50 and 2,900 something employees, between 2.9 and 500 million annual revenues. And we also looked into their patenting activities. Here you can see we have some companies that were really active in patenting and some others that were not. These are the distributions of the different industries. Here you can see these are all manufacturing firms, in different areas such as chemicals, pharmaceuticals, rubber, plastic goods, and so on. The largest share, which is in line with the German industry structure, is metal products and mechanical engineering. We have in Germany, we have lots of manufacturing firms that are somehow suppliers to the automotive OEMs and typical machinery firms. We had about 22% in the first generation, about 40% now in the second generation of family business, 26% in the third, and 14% in fourth generation or later. The people we analyzed, what we did is we called the companies, or our telephone interview provider called the companies and asked for who is the person most well known to digitalization. Yeah, so and that's the reason why we have people from really different areas. Yeah, depending on the size of the firm, depending on the structure. It's not always a C-level person who's the person with the highest knowledge about digitalization. Yeah, so we had about 26% head of departments. These are then for instance, head of IT, yeah, or head of digitalization. Also, this was the largest share. So, what are the results? The first thing we wanted to analyze is what is the status of digitalization, and instead of just asking to what degree are you digitalized, we thought, okay, there's quite a difference regarding how much digitalization goes on in several parts of the business. Yeah, so we broke down the companies into purchasing, R&D, HR, and so on. And for every company, ask about, okay, to what degree are you digitalized in each of these areas? And then in the second step, we also asked regarding the digitalization in product, services, and business model. And this is what we saw. Yeah, if we compare here, you can see the pale blue one is always the family businesses, and the dark blue one is always the non-family business. And as you can see, whenever there is this asterisk here, there is a significant difference between these two groups. And you can see in, for instance, research and development, administration and logistics, family firms are significantly less digitalized as compared to non-family businesses. We also did the same for these three different types as said. Yeah, we also see that the digitalization of the business model as a whole is significantly lower for family firms as compared to non-family firms. So what we can conclude in the first step then is that actually, as compared to other studies, yeah, family firms seems to have a lower degree of digitalization in most of these areas, and in particular regarding the business model. And I will talk a little bit more about this, but I think it's quite logical if you think about, okay, family firms are well connected with their business model. They are very bound to their tradition. Yeah, often they behave in a way that they say, okay, we always did it this way. Yeah, and therefore, digitalizing certain existing processes, improving the productivity and efficiency is really in line with family firms do. But changing a business model through digitalization, yeah, maybe even breaking with the traditions is not really in line with what family firms typically tend to do. So the second thing we ask ourselves is, okay, what are the drivers of digitalization? Where does it come from? Yeah, and we ask about, okay, what is the influence of owners and so on, the different groups you see here on the slide. And that's quite interesting because it clearly shows the difference between family firms and non-family firms. Whereas in a family business, the highest influence, which makes sense, of course, comes from the owners. Yeah? Which means that if you are a family business, it is quite likely that digitalization should be driven by the owners, by the family decision makers. On the other hand, if you look into the non-family firms, the significant influence comes from consultants, from external actors that influence the firm. And this is significantly lower in family businesses. So, and it's really in the nature of family firms, that often family business leaders are more hesitant to working with consultants, to getting external advice. So therefore, we clearly see it's an issue that is related to the owners. And this brought us to the next stage that we said, okay, if the owners are so important, it may make sense to look a little bit more into the particularities of the owners. What are the characteristics that owners should have in order to successfully drive digitalization? And so therefore, we then, in the next step, looked into these owner-related driving forces and also the organization of the firm that facilitates digitalization. The first thing we looked into is the identification. I mentioned it briefly before that from a more theoretical perspective, there is this idea that family firm decision makers make different decisions because they are so closely connected with the firm and its traditions. And so therefore we looked into, okay, to what degree do they identify with the firm? Because we actually believe that this may be a hindrance for digitalization. Interestingly, there's no difference here. So a higher degree of identification of the decision makers, of the owners, that it does not limit digitalization. And the same, if there is a high degree of identification, actually the business model innovation was actually a little bit higher here, but that's in total not of course, and a very important driving force here. The next thing we looked into, which is actually much more interesting, is the degree of digital competence. And from talking to many family business leaders, that is actually something where we also see a significant limitation, that often people in these firms are used to making tough decisions about the strategy, about transformation, but they may not have a detailed competence in digital technologies. And so we ask about this, and you can clearly see that the degree of digitalization in basically all areas of the firm is significantly higher if those decision makers have relevant digital competencies. So as an implication, of course, if you think about, okay, I don't know, handing over your family business to the next generation, you should consider that they need to be trained also in certain relevant competence areas regarding digitalization. Or if you think about your own development, you may think about, okay, certain additional qualification programs to build those relevant digital competencies. And the same you also see in these groups. The next aspect, as I said, was the question about the structural factors and their influence on digitalization. And the first thing we asked is the difference between whether the firm is run only by family members versus if it is run, at least in part, by external managers. Because there is quite an ongoing discussion that if you involve external managers, you may get new perspectives, and you may be better equipped for digitalizing the firm. You can see that for some areas, for instance, customer services and research and development, there is actually a difference here. So in this case, external managers drive digitalization to a certain degree, but it's not relevant for all areas. So we could say maybe that things like customer services in general, developing into services, may be something which is more radical as compared to, for instance, the digitalization of purchasing or HR, which is more plannable and less risky activities. And you see, that's interesting that if you have external managers, the digitalization of products significantly increases. So obviously, also together with the digitalization of customer services, external managers may be more willing to conduct any kind of innovation regarding customers and product market fit. The last thing here we looked into was the question about the influence of generations. And there's quite a long discussion about that the longer that if you involve younger generations, next generations into the digitalization, that this may drive the degree of digitalization. So we ask about, okay, which generation is the family firm currently? What you can see is that also here there are some differences, for instance, for research and development, for customer services and logistics. And we see that the older generation, in this case, has a higher degree of digitalization. So at least a small indication that involving your next generation into digitalization activities makes sense in order to achieve higher degrees of digitalization. And the same could be found here for products. And then we looked into the question, okay, what is the influence of hierarchies? There is in research quite a long discussion about that you should have more flat hierarchies, that you should develop more agile organizations where people can connect at an eye level and where it's easier to spread in ideas and information through the organization. And here you can see there's quite an effect on some of the areas of digitalization. So if you have more weaker hierarchical structures, where it is easier to, as I said, to spread ideas, to communicate to the higher levels, to the decision makers, the degree of digitalization actually increases. And the same here again for products. And then the last thing we looked into was the question about risk-taking willingness. So if the decision makers are inclined to take risks, or if they are more hesitant towards risk-taking. And you can see for basically, I think it's almost all of the categories, that if you are willing to take a higher degree of risks, the digitalization degree significantly increases. Which makes sense, coming back to the nature of digital technologies, often because the complexity and the ambiguity involved in investing into digital technologies, it comes with the necessity to take risks. And so therefore, those who are more willing to take risks have a higher degree of digitalization. Okay, the last aspect we looked into in our study, at a more descriptive level, was the question, okay, does it make sense to digitalize at all? Because it's kind of like the basic assumption, it's necessary to digitalize. It is something that drives performance. So we asked in the last question, okay, what is the effect of digitalization on revenue growth and on the profitability? And we compared those with a high degree of digitalization to those with a low degree of digitalization. The good news here is that we see a significant difference regarding both questions, revenue growth and profitability, for those firms that have a higher degree of digitalization. It's not that high yet, but maybe this is also something that needs to be put into perspective. So it's already significantly different, but if we think about the long-term effects, those firms who are now still doing kind of good, but did not invest into digitalization versus maybe the effect in 10 years, then it is quite likely that this difference will further increase over time. So, the next thing I would like to basically close with is the question, okay, what can we do in order to improve the situation, knowing that owners and family members are very important for digitalization. So what is the implication of this? And so therefore, what we did is we looked into the question, okay, what goals do those people follow in order to, or with the digitalization? Why are they doing this? And we had different categories. And as you can see here, you can split those categories basically in efficiency-related objectives and growth-related objectives. Yeah. So the efficiency-related objectives are things like cost reduction, flexibility, cooperation with partners, customer loyalty, quality improvement. So things that are related to the efficiency that are relatively short-term objectives. On the other hand, we have growth targets such as addressing new markets, strengthening the brand, increasing sustainability, and so on and so forth. And the first observation, there is no significant difference between family firms and non-family firms here. The first observation is that actually most firms use digitalization more for efficiency-related goals. Yeah, so it's not really something in line with this idea of digital transformation where firms would say, okay, we digitalize in order to realize substantial competitive advantages in the future. It's more about, okay, how can we utilize a digital technology to improve what we have been doing since ever. And you see also here in a separate question, yeah, we ask about, okay, are you using digitalization for the optimization of the existing business model versus for doing fundamental changes to the business model? That also the majority says, okay, here we use it to improve what we were doing in the past. Yeah. So if we think about, again, what I told you at the very beginning, what's the idea behind digital transformation? To take digital technologies to create new competitive advantages, to potentially change the business model. Actually, most firms don't really do that. Yeah, most firms actually see digitalization more as means to improve the existing processes and operations. What we see is if we look into the comparison of non-family firms and family firms, we clearly see that this is particularly strong in family firms. Yeah, you see, we calculated. This is a statistical model. I don't want to go too much into the empirical details here, but what you can see here is that if there is a family influence in a company, meaning ownership by family members and involvement into the management of the company, then the pursuit of these growth goals is actually lower. Yeah, so you can see that obviously the involvement of family members in an organization reduces this more ambitious use of digitalization. Yeah, so the more family firms are driven, or the higher the family influence, the lower the use of digitalization to achieve growth goals. It's more related to efficiency-related goals. So that is the one thing. The other thing I would like to highlight is that whenever you have a family firm, there is, of course, also a family system. Yeah, we just saw, okay, family involvement leads to different approaching of goals. But on the other hand, we need to look into, okay, what is the ability of the family members to do something? I already showed you that competence of owners, of family decision makers, plays an important role. And in a study, I don't want to talk too much about this, we separated the digital maturity of the firm and the digital maturity of the family members, which is clearly different to what you have in other firms. Yeah, there's lots of talk about the digital maturity of the firm with resources, with structural things, and so on. But there's also here always the question, okay, what is the digital maturity of the business family who drives these decisions? And in a separate study, we looked into this. And what you can clearly see here, that family willingness and family ability, so really the question, okay, do the family members want and can drive digitalization, has a significant influence also on different degrees of digitalization. You can see if the family has a greater ability, the degree of process digitalization increases, versus if the family has a higher willingness, actually the degree of digital transformation, so changing business models also increases. So what does this mean? Yeah, we saw on the one hand that the goals are more related to efficiency targets. Yeah? On the other hand, we see that the ability and the willingness of the family play an important role. And this is now something I would like just to show you out of an ongoing research project, which is not part of this main study I showed you, where we conducted lots of interviews, where we looked into these two factors. Yeah? So on the one hand, the willingness related to the particular goals they would like to address, and on the other hand, the different abilities. Yeah? You have complex decision-making structures. In family firms, you have lots of different stakeholders involved with different goals and with different abilities. What can you do in order to drive digitalization in these complex structures? And one thing we found here, which I find worth mentioning, is that whenever companies were successful in driving digitalization, they had certain digital experts, certain promoters of digitalization who take different roles, yeah? Who, for instance, act as translators. If you have the patriarch who makes decisions but who does not really understand digital technologies, someone has to explain it to him or her, yeah? In order to build the foundation for decision-making, for instance. And those people act as bridge builders. They are the visionaries. They are the ones who drive digitalization in the firms. And it's not always a person related to the top management team or a person related to the family. We saw that these digital experts, these digital promoters, were in very different roles. Sometimes they were part of the next gen, sometimes they were part just of the middle management. However, in all the companies that successfully drove digitalization, we had those people who brought together or better aligned the goals and who improved the abilities of decision makers in family businesses. So last slide. To sum it up, what did we learn in the things we looked at? We see that German family firms, at least, are less digitalized as compared to non-family businesses, so there is still some room for improvement. We would say training pays off, as we clearly see that competences for digitalization are important. So if you are a family business leader, think about that those people in crucial decision-making roles need to develop digital competences to drive the digital transformation. We see that actually the generation does not play a major role. We see the good news, it makes sense. Yeah? You earn more money if you digitalize better, so it's well invested money most likely. As already said, it's a matter of the owners. External management is not really something that is needed. Yeah, you can develop it also internally. Reducing hierarchies, making your organization more agile and more flexible, of course, makes sense. And the last thing related to goals and willingness, you should identify those promoters in your organization. It must not be a formal role, but you should have those people who can bring the information together, who can, on the one hand, overcome the barrier of reduced willingness, and on the other hand, the barrier of reduced ability. And so therefore ensure that somebody in your organization takes this role in order to convince people, in order to educate people, and to enable better decisions regarding digitalization. That's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you for attention, and I'm very open for all your questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thomas, for your presentation. Now I would like to invite Ivan. Maybe we can leave the questions for the roundtable, so that we will have the opportunity to discuss about all those issues. And then we continue now with Ivan. Thank you very much, Ivan, for now it's your time.
Yes. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ivan Miroshnichenko, and I'm a faculty at IMD Business School. I'm very happy to be here second time in a row in 1 year. It's a big pleasure, and first time Alejandro impressed me, and second time it's even more of so, because he has a vision. He has a vision on how to speak to family businesses and which topics to address. Because digitalization, it's one of those topics that there is a lot of rumors and a lot of noise around, but very big challenges are also coming with digitalization. It's nowadays more than ever important to speak to family businesses about those challenges, because even if you don't like it, somehow we are exposed to these kind of things. And just to give you a bit of context, I hope my faculty. Oh, now it's yes. Basically, to give you a bit of context where I come from, my last name, Miroshnichenko, I know it's not easy to pronounce and it doesn't sound that much Swiss. I'm Ukrainian. At the age of 20, I left to do an internship in US for 2 years, and since then I've been on the road for past 15 years. I've been living and working in US, UK, Sweden, Germany, Greece, Italy, and now I'm based in Switzerland. And it is my double pleasure to be in Valencia, because it's very welcome to expats, so I feel here like at home. And my business school, IMD, it's very similar in terms of settings. We also have waterside next to it. It's a Geneva Lake, but at the same time it's unique because we do speak only with big and large families. It's very small. It's based in Lausanne, and in Singapore I'm based in Lausanne. And usually we have conversation with families from South America, Europe, Asia, US. Mainly it's very big, influential families, but in my previous experiences I've been exposed also to small and medium-sized family businesses. And I would like to uncover today some myths about Swiss family businesses and challenges of digitalization in a Swiss context. And speaking about agenda, I would give you a brief introduction into Swiss family firms. Maybe some of you have partners, maybe you were thinking about get one, or maybe even buy some business in Switzerland. I will introduce you a concept of digital competitiveness and digital strategy in a Swiss context, and not only. And I will speak about some of the most pressing challenges that Swiss family firms are facing. So what we know about Switzerland, it's usually Swiss and Swiss banking tradition, maybe also watches, people like Swiss watches as well. Of course, Swiss cheese is as good as it used to be many years ago. Swiss banking secrecy has eroded over time, but still at the same time, it does have a good reputation globally. People stay in line to open a Swiss bank account. And believe me, we'll deal a lot with family offices. They also love Switzerland. And one of the reasons, because it's a very unique context. You have Italian-speaking, German-speaking, and French-speaking communities. And I happened to live in Italy and Germany before, and I see a substantial difference when you speak about German Deutsche Bahn, which always makes front pages for its delays. Swiss Bahn, it's an opposite. And same goes for Italian part. It's very efficient, and there is a unique context because each canton has their own rule in terms of regulations, and very importantly, in terms of taxes. So many companies like this. And when we speak about Swiss family businesses, maybe in my hotel, I didn't have a pleasure to see Schindler, but most of the times I see a Schindler lift when I go somewhere. So it's a Swiss company. Swatch, everyone knows Swatch for watches. We also have Tetra Laval, which is based in my canton, in Canton of Vaud. It's basically food packaging company. It's a Tetra Package, everyone knows it. Barry & Callebaut, it's a coffee company, and also chocolate. Firmenich, it's perfume. Roche, it's a huge giant in pharma. And there are many, many others. I just picked a few of those, the most renowned ones. And I am sure, as Alejandro told you and his colleagues, Swiss family firms also dominate Swiss landscape. It's a dominant ownership structure also in Switzerland, because many people think it's a corporate. We do have corporations controlled by families, but also we have a lot of private and small, medium-sized family businesses. And speaking about influence on Swiss family firms, I would like to stress to use that Switzerland is a very tiny country, and 70%, more than 70%, it's mountains. I still wonder how people manage to live there, but 16 of Swiss family firms are in the world's top 500, according to the recent study of colleagues from St. Gallen and Ernst & Young. And they employ around 500,000 people in Switzerland. And it is extremely considerable amount of workforce for Swiss economy of around 8 million people. They are quite successful. In 2022, they delivered a sales growth of 15%, just slightly below Asian firms, but much above of North American family businesses. So there is something special about Swiss family firms that I would like to share with you. And also, just to give you an idea on the economic impact, in this graph you can see basically top jurisdictions, top 10 by the revenue in billions in US dollars. Of course, US leads the index, following Germany and France, but tiny country of Switzerland has more than 235 billions of US delivered by family firms as a revenue. And believe me, if we would estimate the economic impact of largest family offices, the things would go vice versa. Switzerland will be among top 5. So there is something unique, and Swiss family firms in the digital age also, despite all this unique and I would say even a luxury context, experience big challenges. Here I would like just to mention you some empirical regularities that I found with my colleagues in our research, and I would also further elaborate more on them. So basically, we do find that the bigger is the family business, more advanced digitalization level is. So basically, it is quite obvious. You big, you have resources, you have connections, you have economy of scale, you can invest more. Younger family businesses are more aggressive in digitalization. It is also comes with no surprise, because younger generation, our native digitals, they are very much into it as the same as goes with sustainability. They are digital and sustainable, so they want to change. But of course, there are a lot of tensions in the big family businesses, because founders sometimes are conservative, and it's not easy, for youngsters to change, for descendants to change something with a company. Also, Swiss family businesses, especially from IT and media, they lead. They're ahead of the pack as compared to other sectors. And as I mentioned before, due to the uniqueness of context, things change depending on a canton, because of taxation, because of historical differences, and because of other things. So speaking about digital strategy and competitiveness, I would like to introduce you briefly to the IMD World Digital Competitiveness Ranking. It is a ranking that is developed by my colleagues from World Competitiveness Center, and it is used by governments globally, and we do have, regularly assessments of various initiatives. So basically, this is for 2022. ranking, and I'm sorry I couldn't deliver you 2023 because it's due to be released in December, is about to come. But I asked my colleagues from departments where Switzerland was on the same place. Yes, Switzerland is still fifth in the globe. So basically, to briefly introduce you to the index, it is basically assessment, global assessment of some of them, of most of the developed economies on digital competitiveness, which is basically readiness of economy to adapt to digital technologies and challenges. And it is composed of three main factors: knowledge, technology, and future readiness. And basically, there is more than 50 criteria from various secondary and also first data sources, which are analyzed, and after ranking is delivered. So 2022, where do we stand? Basically, in top 5, we have Scandinavians, we have Asians, US, of course, and we have Switzerland. So for a small country which is covered by more than 70% in mountains, it is very well placed in terms of digital technologies. And if you look globally, basically this ranking resembles all the latest development in AI and machine learning. So you do have US as a leader, Europe, and following by Asia. If you happen to have partners from BRICS, maybe it's a good idea to rethink it twice, because the only BRIC country which is somehow close to top 20 is China. And in terms of South America and Asia, sorry, it doesn't happen, doesn't seem to work. Basically, it's only Chile and the United Arab Emirates, which is at the bottom of the ranking, basically. So, and of course, the natural question, where is Spain? Where is Spain? It's I understand you. So if we look on a whole global composition, basically, I think it doesn't work anymore. But anyway. Yeah, you can see it. So basically Spain, and for your reference, usually Spain is, your reference group will be Portugal, Italy, and Greece, and Spain. So this is usually the common thing in economics to compare. So you are ahead of the pack. You see Spain is 28, Italy is 39, Greece is 50, and Portugal is 38. So it's a good news, You're on the right track. Of course, there is a lot of things to develop, but it's a good news. And of course, the most tragic one, you see Venezuela, I say lately it is on the news, and Mr. Maduro wants to conquer his neighboring country. Well, he should think about maybe some other things to develop when it comes to digital. And speaking about knowledge, I would just briefly mention you. Here you have a graph of Switzerland compared to its peers, which will be in terms of GDP growth, population, and territory. So for Switzerland, it will be Norway, Ireland, Denmark, and Sweden, and the Netherlands. And when we decompose, because many things become more visible when we decompose all the rankings in terms of talent, training and education, and scientific collaboration in Switzerland, you can see that in terms of talent, Switzerland is quite ahead of the pack. At the same time, looking at the digital and technological skills, it is still lagging. So even in such a developed economy and digitally sound, many family businesses face shortage of digital skills, digital specialists. Another interesting thing I would like to draw your attention is that Switzerland scores very low when it comes to women with degrees and graduates in science. It is what it is. We are still improving, and it is also affected family businesses. Not even a single family firm from Switzerland has a CEO, family business has a female CEO. It is surprising. Diversity is a big topic now. Many things change. Hopefully things would change in this direction as well. And speaking about scientific concentration, one of the things that can be also improved is high-tech patent grants. So basically there are a lot of applications, but it's not. But grants are still quite few. When we look at the basically technology pillar of digital competitiveness ranking, you can see strengths and weaknesses as well. So if you happen to be an entrepreneur, you want to start your own business in Switzerland, it's too damn difficult. I must be honest, it's very, very difficult. It's very small piece of land. Venture capitalists are not there, and not as aggressive as they are in US. So it's very difficult. Enforcing contracts can also be a challenge. If you happen to have a partnership, due to legal procedures, it is also quite complex. Just because of three official languages, all the documents must be in three languages, so it takes time. And in terms of capital, it's beautiful. You know, country credit rating is top. You have a lot of financial sector is very well developed. At the same time, IT and media stock market capitalization is not as developed as we wish for. It's not US. We are still progressing. So many family businesses in this area. Of course, they go when they want to do an IPO in other markets, not in Switzerland. And speaking about technological framework, surprisingly, but mainly due to geographical differences, there is a quite short wireless broadband. So Switzerland is behind because of mountains. It's very difficult logistically to make wireless in very difficult areas, and also high-tech exports. So this is a very important indicator for family businesses. You know, if you're in high-tech, you want to think about exporting your things, but if you don't have right legal procedures and enforcing of contracts, it's quite difficult. Speaking about future readiness, this is a very, very important concept, and there is also a future readiness index nowadays developed aside. But basically, this subcategory of digital competitiveness gives you an idea how ready you are for the future as a business, as an economy. And here we can see that traditionally Swiss used to be very conservative. And when it comes to adaptive attitudes, they score very, very low. And speaking about business more agility, you can see that one of the weakest points is basically it's use of big data and analytics. These kind of technologies are still not very well developed, and especially in the context of small and medium-sized family businesses who quite often financially constrained and constrained by lack of appropriate human capital, as I will elaborate afterwards. And in terms of IT integration, cybersecurity of Switzerland is still can be substantially improved. I will speak a bit later about more into it. And of course, it's good to have a global perspective, not just a snapshot for a year. You can see that basically Switzerland is doing very well in terms of knowledge. At the same time, as depicted by blue line, at the same time, in terms of technology, which is depicted by green line, you can see that over time it has been eroding, and future readiness also has been shaken just in the last few years. So on average, it's doing very well. It's top 5, but there are many things that can be improved. And of course, Swiss government is very fast to reply to all these challenges. So basically, in 2023, they introduced a digital strategy, digital Switzerland strategy. There are plenty of different institutions and actors active in this area who provide advices, consulting, networking, and this strategy involves 5 core pillars. It's basically about education and skills. As you saw, it's not doing very well on skills, so many companies need specialists, and there is a lack of digital specialists. Security and trust, especially cybersecurity, it's a huge issue for Swiss family businesses. Legal frameworks, infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and digital public services. These are basically the priorities that are basically Swiss government have put in place as a long-term orientation. And speaking about key challenges, I would like to start with costs. This is sound like a very simple, but it's very complex because we spoke earlier with Alejandro that cost of coffee in Switzerland, medium cost of coffee, they just released it. It increased, and it used to be 5 francs, now it's 7 francs, 6.57, depending on the canton. So if you were to invest 1 million, multiply it by 5. by 5 if you do it in Switzerland. So it's very, very expensive to invest in digital skills, digital assets in Swiss context because of cost of, mainly because of cost of talent capital and because of risks posed by digital things. Here you can see basically an outlook of Swiss economy, and since COVID, things have been doing very well, but recently in 2022, due to geopolitical shocks and other things, economy is still falling behind, because it used a good sign if it's above 100. Or at least 100, but it's slightly below, so interest rates are high, and there is this little bit of turbulence and uncertainty. Even Swiss family firms also are exposed to this kind of things. I like this picture a lot because you see a big corporate pressure on the shoulder of this man, which happened to be a new CEO of Roche, huge pharma, one of the top in the global landscape, Thomas Schinecker, and he says, we are increasing our R&D spending in the low single-digit percentage range, just to under 15 billion in Swiss francs. So for him, it's a low digit, because they happen to have a not very good financial quarter, and they didn't deliver what they expected. So they little bit slowed, even Roche slowed down. You can imagine how difficult it's for small and medium-sized family businesses. And he says that we are working on algorithms that combine different data from patients and give the doctor in the hospital or surgery help with diagnosis and therapy using AI and machine learning. So that's what Roche is thinking, what kind of, gives you an idea what kind of technologies and how they use it. It is extremely, extremely remarkable example, but at the same time very scary. If my data is somewhere in the cloud and it's not very well protected, and it's many things can be shaky. So you must be, apart from investing, you must also protect this kind of data and have a very strong procedures. I'm sure Roche will do it very well given the resources. But if you're a small and medium-sized company, you need to think twice whether to engage in AI or machine learning, especially if your servers outside of Europe, who doesn't in other countries that do not have a strong digital regulation. And how do Swiss family firms deal with this cost? There is no rocket science. They try to cut costs in other departments, efficiency gains. They cut on human capital. They try to operationalize, streamline, offshore. Of course, you can raise equity investments, which is a very sensitive issue for family firm to always to sell a stake in your company. Get a loan is not a problem in Switzerland. But it comes also with constraints of your bank, of an institution from which you borrow. They always constantly monitor you. You must deliver what you promise. Many Swiss family firms partnership. We have a great ecosystem, small, but it's very remarkable. EPFL, École Polytechnique Fédérale Lausanne University, it's one of the top in Polytechnic globally. We have ETH Zurich. In other schools where there is a huge engineering R&D departments, and many companies partner. I just learned while I was getting on my flight here that one of the German family businesses, if I recall correctly, it was the founder of family of Lidl. They decided to invest. They didn't disclose how much, but they decided to open 60 professorships in Switzerland and Germany on AI, because the family sees these two countries as the leading countries in terms of AI, and Switzerland, of course, wants to position it as and invest a lot in AI developments. So there is a lot of state funding, and last but not least, I should mention your private resources, family resources, also quite often used. Speaking about human capital, it is surprising and challenging given the geographical position. If you look on a map, you have France, you have Germany, you have Austria, you have Italy. Every day there is a huge inflow of these people from these countries to Switzerland. They just They just come in hundreds on hundreds, and somehow it is still a big problem. And for when it comes to digital, there is not enough IT specialists. Apparently, Europe doesn't do very well a job. And now, far-right government, far-right party has won in recent elections in Switzerland, so immigration became even a more of issue, especially for individuals from third world countries, non-EU countries. That's where we find all the IT nowadays. It's India, China, used to be Ukraine and Russia, but now, unfortunately, those IT specialists are involved in other more important tasks. So, you know, just to give you an idea, like in mid-August, in August of 22, more than 30,000 IT jobs were not being filled because due to the lack of capital, and this poses a serious challenge on many Swiss family firms, because digital by nature should have strong presence of IT intellectuals, IT professionals, and if you're constrained, you cannot go wild as you wish in terms of scaling your digitalization. Just to give you an idea of a small, medium-sized company in Swiss terms, MPS, they are specialized in very complex metal parts. They produce those parts for medical equipment, watch industry, and other industries. It's mainly Swiss, I would describe it Swiss-based and unique to Swiss context. You don't find these bar tuners somewhere else, so produced locally. And there is a huge shortage. Company, you know, as the production manager says, we are short of bar tuners above all. And these are multi-skilled mechanics specialized in the manufacture of complex metal parts. So company wants to grow, has a clear targets, but cannot find and cannot grow talents locally. So, and of course, you start to increase workloads of your existing workforce, but it doesn't pay you over long run because you end up with a lot of burnouts and other issues. So it's not an ideal case scenario. You can somehow manage it in a short, but in long-term run, you must train this specialist. And how Swiss family firms deal with a shortage of talent, basically they try to invest in education and training of employees and potential employees like graduate students, PhD students, traineeships. They offer a lot. Participate in professional reorientation programs. They even go further beyond. They offer very flexible and attractive working conditions. As I mentioned, you have floods of people from France, Germany, Austria, Italy coming on a daily basis to work for Swiss company and coming at night to their home. But you also have Greeks, Italians, Spanish who fly for a few days a week and come back on a weekend. So, and Swiss companies are willing, Swiss family businesses also are willing to accept it. Due to the obvious shortages in the talent force, especially in a digital context. Some try to outsource, as I mentioned, to BRICS countries, India, China, or other Eastern Europe, where you have a lot of IT talent and doesn't want to relocate, for example. And of course, companies try also to lobby with local government as much as they can for more work permits for third country nationals. Cybersecurity, this is huge. This is basically comes at the cost of first and second. High cost, lack of talent in IT, you end up as a victim. Every second large firm and every third SME have already fallen a victim to a cyber attack in Switzerland. And because it's so lucrative, cyber attacks increase exponentially. It is very dangerous thing, you know, as you can see from these statistics which Swiss report regularly. Around 40% of companies had disruptions to their operations, and it's not only small and medium size, some of them are big conglomerates operating in various locations. So if you have this kind of disruption, it's a huge cost involved. data leaks, unauthorized access, product malfunctions, and another one, a particularly dangerous one, is when your firm is used as a gateway to attack your customers. It hits a lot on you and on your reputation. And if you've been around for decades, for centuries, your family, you don't want to be associated with this kind of thing. Of course, it can happen, but it's not desirable at all. And in extreme case, loss of organizational assets. Around 7% of firms even lost assets because of cyber attacks. And just to give you a few examples, a few recent ones, ABB, huge Swiss tech giant. They publicly admitted they had basically security incident. There was some kind of group, hacker group, who attacked their servers, and in various locations they did experience disruption of operations, which came at a big cost. And a second example, which was very recent, I believe it's December 5th, just a few days before our conference. Basically, hackers published bad in-city data on darknet. This is a big thing. You might say, no, it's municipality, it's public, it doesn't have nothing to do with me, but if you happen to be in the database as a supplier or, have some sensitive data, you don't want this to happen. This is absolutely not desirable at all. So just to give you an example of role of cybersecurity in Swiss context for family businesses and also for public institutions. How do you protect? Most of Swiss family firms, if not all, and Switzerland is renowned for having insurance for everything, they have cyber risk insurance. However, recently, several CEOs of insurance companies said, look, we want to stop this because we cannot estimate probability actually grows constantly, but scale of the damage we cannot estimate in advance. It's very difficult. So as of now, it's available, but it is not the best solution. Many companies try to develop cyber resilience, which is called. So basically, they have dedicated teams, specialists, regular board meetings, regular reporting, and preventive measures taking place in order to prevent this kind of attacks. And some outsource. If you're small, you cannot. You try as much as you can. If you cannot do it within, you do it outside. And of course, 100% have an emergency plan. It's a risk that inevitable nowadays. Fourth, this one is maybe it's more Swiss-driven. It also has been recently developed by some of my colleagues from Digital Transformation Department in collaboration with other Swiss institutions. It's called Corporate Digital Responsibility. And here, basically, in a Swiss context, there is a lot of demand for environmental protection and also for your digital authenticity protection. So it comes basically, it comes in 4 different parts. It goes with social, economic, technological, and environmental. And it things, basically, if we speak about social, it's about your privacy, your data privacy protection. Economic, it will be things like job loss associated with AI or machine learning. Technological, it's basically that you apply AI bias-free, this kind of things. And environmental, it's more on a physical side, so you try to be good to the natural environment. And just to give you an example, this is Veleda. This is a family business in cosmetics, I believe. And their manager basically says, the following: our values frame what we wanted to do in the digital world and where we set our own limits, where we would go or not. And by having said this, they immediately confirm it with concrete actions. They said, look, we use AI, but we do not let our employees go. We retrain them. So basically, they directly address economic implications of AI use in the company. They say they prevent job loss. So this is called an example of digital responsibility. And this is a digital trust label. It's, I don't know whether you've heard it, it has been recently introduced as a voluntary certification of digital responsibility, and many family firms, Swiss family firms, adhere to it. So basically, it's your digital services are tested on 35 criteria along 4 core dimensions. So it's basically security, data protection, reliability, fair user interaction. So and you have it as a label of digital responsibility on your company website, on your company product. So just to give you an analogy, it will be like a fair trade mark on a coffee that we buy. So we know that it's respected all the ethical guidelines. This goes for a digital responsibility of a company when you obtain this kind of certification. It's not obligatory, but many companies go for it. And just to conclude, I would like with one of my favorite Swiss cartoonists that gives us a vision of a future, a bit of gloomy vision. You know, it's in Estonia, business disputes nowadays up to 7,000 are basically taken by the court where AI is a judge. So this is the future. AI is a judge. So how can I appeal to AI if my company loses a dispute? In the Netherlands, tax authorities several years ago implemented AI to potentially detect fraud, tax fraud. And many individuals, because AI was biased, many individuals of let's say, migrant background have been wrongly accused and of tax fraud, and big bills have been sent back to these poor people. Some of them committed suicide because when you appeal to authorities, they say, look, AI, this is absolute authority. So this is a danger that when we speak about digital, you must know how to use it. It's a tool. You cannot delegate 100% to AI all your decisions. You must be very well aware of what you do, how you do it. And I know in Spain you had a big thing many years ago, maybe still, when police uses AI in cases of domestic violence. And sometimes many times AI didn't do a right assessment, so women have been still targeted, being subject to domestic violence. So basically what I'm saying, what I wanted to say to you is that we live in a very exciting age, very intriguing and very fast developing, but AI and machine learning and other digital tools should be applied very carefully and should be 100% your responsibility in a family business. What you do and how you do it just on you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for your presentation too. Thanks to the both of you for being so professional and just doing your presentation in exactly the time that we provided to you. This is always working with professionals is great. So now I would like to invite Carlos Albors and Consuelo Baquer from Group Layex and Nirbel Cosmetics to join the table with us. And also I will ask you again, Thomas and Ivan, to join the table. I would recommend you to take the translation because maybe Consuelo will be talking Spanish, and maybe you will need Edith to understand also her interventions. We can sit as we are located in the picture, so everybody recognize us. Please go there. Everybody has you don't need it really, yeah? The translation is okay for you. You understand Spanish, you understand English. So, yeah, so I would like to thank you again for joining this table. The idea was to share some insights about what we have learned from these presentations, also having the perspective of managers, owners, that Thomas has mentioned. Owners are so important in family firms when we talk about digitalization. Recently, I participated also in a study about the challenges of digitalization in Valencian companies, in a study that was trying to measure the impact of data in economy and so on. And one of the issues that came on the dynamics and focus groups that we were using for this research, especially for family firms, the role of ownership was raised immediately on the table because they are the last people, the last decision makers. and their commitment and their willingness to invest on those issues are so important. So here we have two examples of companies who have started to work on those issues, and we would like also to listen to your experiences about that. Okay, so I would like to ask you first, Carlos and Consuelo, to introduce a little bit your companies, what do you do, what your company is doing, and what is your situation in terms of your steps in terms of digitalization in your company. So please, Carlos, if you'd like to start.
Bueno, first of all, thank you to invite us for this meeting. Congratulations for your presentation. I don't know if you want to continue in English or...
Whatever you want, yeah. You can do whatever you want.
El foro es en español, tú vas a hablar en español.
Me siento más cómoda.
Bueno, a mí me da igual, ¿eh? O sea, for me it's no matter. If someone wants to ask something in English, I can ask in English, but for speaking in Spanish because people is in Spain, ¿ok?
Okay.
Bueno, nosotros, Layex, somos una empresa que nació en 1970. Somos una empresa de productos químicos, emulsiones base agua. Nuestra competencia son multinacionales. Hemos crecido, pues hemos tenido un crecimiento bastante importante en los últimos años.
Can you hear it or not?
So far it was only in Spain, in Spanish.
Yeah, you had to change the channel maybe.
The channel.
A ver, ahora.
Channel 2.
Yes.
Two?
Yes. No.
¿No?
Ah,
Yeah.
Channel 2.
Yeah.
great.
Bueno, pues nosotros tuvimos una empresa en Brasil durante 9 años y con la pandemia aprovechamos para cerrarla porque habíamos comprado hace 5 años una empresa, bueno, en julio era 5 años, una empresa en Alemania, cerca de Düsseldorf y la polimerización, las emulsiones son las materias primas para otros fabricantes, materias primas para fabricantes de pinturas, materias primas para textil, acabados textiles, estampación textil, emulsiones para catiónico, asfalto, para darle más flexibilidad al asfalto, adhesivos para etiquetas, para hacer las tintas y demás, ¿vale? Hace 4 años la Cámara de Comercio nos dio el premio de transformación digital, por lo tanto estamos muy metidos con el tema de transformación digital, pero para mí es importante entender que la transformación digital no es una cuestión de voy a transformarme, voy a pagar X miles de euros. O sea, yo creo que es un camino, no son ni 2 pasos, es un camino largo que estamos obligados a los que quieran sobrevivir, empezar y trabajar, y un poco pues ir viendo con todo el equipo. Bueno, sí que luego entramos porque me estoy pasando de la presentación de la empresa, pero bueno, eso es un poco a lo que nos dedicamos y lo que hacemos.
Muy bien, gracias, Carlos. Consuelo, ¿quieres presentar vuestro caso?
Bueno, yo soy Consuelo Baqués, soy la CEO de Nirbel Cosmetics y de Nirbel SL. Nosotros tenemos un grupo de empresas que está conformado por Nirbel SL, que es la empresa fabricante, Nirbel Cosmetics es la empresa comercializadora, y luego aparte tenemos empresa también en Estados Unidos para lo que es la venta por lo que es el Estados Unidos, lo que es Latinoamérica, etcétera. Nosotros llevamos en el mercado nacimos en 1979, somos empresa familiar, yo soy segunda generación, y siempre nos hemos dedicado a la fabricación y comercialización de productos cosméticos para el profesional, para lo que es el sector de la peluquería y el sector de la estética. Desde el año 2000 llevamos exportando fuera, nuestros productos estamos exportando en más de 40 países. Somos muy potentes lo que es en Estados Unidos, también somos muy potentes, ahora con el problema de la guerra y tal, un poquito menos, pero bueno, en esa zona del norte de Europa también, Emiratos Árabes, etcétera. Y bueno, la digitalización de la empresa, nosotros empezamos a digitalizar la empresa por los años 90-95, o sea, nosotros ya hace muchísimos años que contamos con un ERP, fuimos yo creo que de nuestra zona, nosotros estamos en Alcoy, y siempre hemos pensado que por nuestro sistema, por la legislación también que nos aplica a nivel cosmético, para nosotros es muy importante el control de la trazabilidad. A nosotros, por reglamentación cosmética sanitaria, se nos exige mucho que garanticemos la seguridad al cliente y, por tanto, tenemos que tener muy controlado todos los procesos que hacemos. Con el papel es muy difícil controlarlo y entonces siempre ha sido política de la empresa digitalizar al máximo. Empezamos digitalizando todo el tema de almacenes, entradas, salidas de materias primas, acondicionados, salida de producto, y tenemos digitalizado todo el sistema de producción en el sentido de que para que las fórmulas estén controladas, parámetros, calidad, trazabilidad. Y bueno, al final yo pienso que el tema de la digitalización en las empresas no se puede hacer de golpe de repente. Tienes que ir haciendo pequeños pasitos, ir adaptando, porque es un tema bastante conflictivo a nivel dentro de las personas.
Gracias, Consuelo. ¿Querías poner un
Sí, quería,
un
no,
vídeo?
sí puede ser, pero es un poquito de presentación de la empresa.
Sí. Sí, es que me han comentado hace un momento que estaba preparado, sí.
En Nirvel Beauty Group llevamos más de 40 años investigando y desarrollando productos de belleza. Con nuestras marcas Nirvel Profesional, especializada en cosmética capilar, y Levissime, dedicada a la cosmética facial y corporal, ayudamos a los profesionales a que puedan potenciar la belleza única de las personas. Porque hay muchos tipos de belleza y la verdadera radica en su pluralidad y diversidad. Esa belleza que nos hace únicos y que cada uno tiene en su interior. Por eso nos comprometemos a que nuestros productos de excelente calidad puedan llegar a todas las personas. Porque contamos con una amplia variedad de productos que satisfacen tanto a profesionales como a los clientes más exigentes. También a los que quieren estar al día de las últimas tendencias. Nuestros productos cumplen con estrictos estándares de calidad para cubrir cualquier necesidad con las máximas garantías. Estamos cerca de la gente. Y es que somos un grupo familiar fundado en 1979, en el que la pasión por la belleza, la perseverancia, la investigación y la escucha activa a los clientes forman parte de nuestro ADN. Somos expertos en belleza y elegimos formar y dar asesoramiento a los profesionales del sector para que puedan sacar a relucir la belleza única de las personas. Nos mostramos tal y como somos, dirigiendo nuestra información a los profesionales para que se sientan parte de nosotros. Porque creemos en ti y tu belleza. Porque creemos que juntos podemos crear algo hermoso. Porque nuestros valores de calidad, innovación, profesionalidad y sostenibilidad nos impulsan a ser cada día mejores. Creemos y creamos. De creer y de crear. Porque entre creer y crear solo se necesita dar el paso. Creemos en la belleza única de las personas. Somos Nirvel Beauty Group.
Muchas gracias por esta introducción de a qué os dedicáis, ¿no? Para poder saber un poco, situaros, ¿no? Thomas and Ivan, I would also like to they have mentioned that this digitalization challenge is actually a process, and we agree. We have been discussing about this before, and I would like to ask you, from your experience, what recommendations would you give us to where to start, how to start on these issues? What is the first step, and how can we go? Because you mentioned about maturity, for example, before. You need certain maturity to start considering certain maybe more complex challenges. So what would be your recommendation regarding to this first steps?
I think the main thing, and it was mentioned before, that it's a long-term process. And I would say, from my personal experiences, those companies that were successful on a long-term basis were those that started with a clear strategic vision where they would like to go. Because I showed you these different steps that basically the fundament for digitalization is to make your data digitally accessible and available. And this is this is some kind of dirty work, but it's necessary. Yeah? And also the digitalization of the processes and developing of capabilities and creating interfaces. It is something which may not lead to significant competitive advantages, but it is necessary to be able to create a digital company for the future, yeah, and then maybe come up with really digital business models and so on. And what I saw is that many companies actually who lack this strategic or the digital strategy, they start at the very top with more symbolic initiatives. Yeah, quite often there are many things going on because, we need to digitalize. And then they do, I don't know, they create new roles, and then they do a hackathon, and then there's here a little bit and there a little bit. They create lots of redundancies, but it will never really change the firm. Yeah, so and therefore, those leaders who have been successful on a long-term basis, they start with the basics and go through this long-term process. And I would say those firms that come to my mind who are like role models in digitalization nowadays, they all started more than 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ivan?
Yes, I would say from my research and when we're speaking with families, what we observe, it's basically play with what you have. And what I mean by saying this, use in your benefit your ecosystem. So basically, you cannot compete with Chinese or American companies on the same level ground. You have in, as far as I understood here, a very nice ecosystem of schools, different institutions, different actors with whom you can collaborate. And there is a good thing. There is recently a very good advice that had been given by Kurt Masler, who has just published a book which is called Open Strategy. I strongly encourage to be open in your strategy and know what are your strengths and weaknesses and capitalize on them in your local environment. Don't necessarily go overseas where you have very big cultural differences, jurisdictional differences and all the other differences. Try to grow locally, and after you born local and go global. And take step by step, take gradual development very cautiously, but at the same time very aggressively building on what you have locally within your own ecosystem. But of course, if you happen to have a good partner from somewhere abroad, it's also welcome. But the first, I would say, step is to identify your local strengths, and another fundamental thing that I would suggest is to have a toolkit to assess where do you stand. Before making bold visions, we do machine learning, AI, or other things. Just understand what you need in terms of technology and how you will achieve it and how much time you have. And be quite honest with you and your team and also employees, because in some family businesses, in our research, we notice that when an ordinary employee comes to the family founder or some family member and says, "Look, this doesn't work at all," he says once or she says once or twice and never tells it again. And people are still living their bubble, especially if we go for a bigger size businesses, but do not really implement and stay in touch with employees. Especially if you are small or medium size, be very well rounded what you are doing and take advantage of your local ecosystem. This is my view.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Carlos, has mencionado antes que vosotros empezasteis hace muchos años, Consuelo también, ya lleváis mucho tiempo de experiencia. Se ha hablado de que esto es un proceso, ¿no? Y que hay que ir madurando, y que Tomás comentaba, Iván estaba comentando ahora de abrir digamos, los planteamientos estratégicos a un mayor número de partners, ¿no? Para poder desarrollar aspectos que a lo mejor uno solo no puede hacer, ¿no? Y Tomás ha comentado la importancia de empezar por un trabajo que a lo mejor es no tan visible, de preparar la empresa a disponer de los datos y hacerlos útiles, ¿no? Pero necesaria. ¿Nos podrías contar un poco vuestra experiencia, qué pasos habéis dado y pues, por dónde empezasteis y dónde estáis en este momento?
Sí.
Brevemente.
Sí, nosotros empezamos también, pues eso, hace muchos años. Primero se implementa un ERP, luego vas a papeles cero, con gestión documentaria, luego automatizar los almacenes, luego pues el tema de marketing, relaciones. Pero al final, para mí, todo esto es muy importante en el empezar y en el camino. Es un poco que la filosofía de la empresa todos vayan acorde. O sea, al final, cuando tú implementas cualquier sistema nuevo, de una forma u otra estás sacando a todo el mundo de su zona de confort. Entonces, no es una cuestión de que a lo mejor la dirección de la empresa ve que en una parte de la empresa vas más lento que el resto de la empresa o que se está quedando atrás comparando con, pues, vale, estamos exportando en 39 países ya, pero es que a lo mejor las cargas y descargas, que es muy básico, se retrasan, pues se busca de formas de automatizar o cosas. Entonces, para mí es muy importante primero que juntarte con un buen partner, que el equipo vaya motivado, o sea, vayan todos a la par y a un líder interno, ¿no? Entonces, no es por donde empezamos, lo que quiero ver, donde quiero llegar es que a lo mejor puedes estar en 2 o 3 trabajos en paralelo para llegar porque es lento, ¿eh? O sea, esto de transformación en un programa no te dice, no, y en 3 meses funcionando, o sea, no se lo cree nadie. Al final pagas muchas novatadas, es muy importante juntarte con un buen partner y lo más importante es para mí que tu equipo vayan todos a la par con un líder de proyecto que enseñe, que forme y que haga. Entonces, es que en una empresa, en nuestro caso, una empresa productiva, hay tantos departamentos, laboratorio, compras, administración, I+D, producción, que, o sea, vas automatizando según vas viendo las necesidades, pero es muy lento y obligatorio para no quedarte atrás y seguir con la productividad. Metes el OE, con el análisis del OE, vas detectando necesidades. O sea,
Consuelo, nuestra
Sí,
experiencia.
prácticamente es lo que estaba comentando Carlos. Lo más fundamental en la digitalización de una empresa es tener el equipo alineado. Y para que el equipo esté alineado con la estrategia, tiene que haber muy claro que para mí es muy importante que desde la dirección se establezca muy clara la estrategia y los objetivos. Y entonces todos tienen que, porque si el primero que no cree en el cambio digital, en la digitalización de la empresa, es la dirección, nadie va a creer. O sea, porque aquí el camino se muestra andando. Entonces hay que mostrar con el ejemplo. El primero que tenemos que creer es la dirección o la parte directiva de la empresa. Y luego para mí hacer muchísima pedagogía, hablar mucho con los trabajadores, ten en cuenta que no todos los trabajadores tienen el mismo nivel académico, no todos los trabajadores tienen las mismas edades, por tanto, tenemos que saber tropicalizar un poco la digitalización dentro de la empresa según el personal que va a trabajar. No es lo mismo tener una licenciatura que tener la formación básica o tener una formación profesional o tener 55 años que tener 25. Cambian mucho. Entonces, hay que estar muy atento de que esa gente no se te quede a la cola. Entonces, la persona, y nosotros somos mucho de hacer líderes por grupos. Dentro del grupo tienen que haber como semigrupos para que vayan controlando que nadie se te quede descolgado o pierda la motivación, porque al final esto es un camino muy largo, la digitalización de una empresa, o sea, cambiar un programa informático, simplemente cambiar el ERP de la empresa, eso es un CISMAF dentro de la organización. Porque la gente tiene mucha reticencia al cambio. Y aparte, un tema en nuestra empresa siempre ha primado mucho el control del dato. Eso tiene que estar por encima de todo. Antes de meter cualquier tecnología, tenemos que contrastarla muy bien porque nosotros tenemos que cuidar mucho de nuestro dato. No puede irse tan alegremente. Por eso todo el tema de la inteligencia artificial, todo el tema del chat GPT, todo el mundo no puede utilizarlo porque estás dando información que a lo mejor no puedes dar. Hay que tener mucho ojito. El tema de la ciberseguridad en la empresa es clave porque cada vez estamos teniendo muchísimos más ataques y para mí tener dentro de la empresa un departamento potente de IT es fundamental. Pasa que con ellos también hay que hacer pedagogía. porque hablan otro idioma que la mayoría no entendemos. Entonces necesitamos que se acerquen a los que somos ignorantes en el tema de la digitalización.
Solo un matiz que se me olvidó antes de pasar ahí, por darle la razón. Al final, tan importante es tener a gente con experiencia en la empresa, porque cuesta mucho formar y al final el proceso de formación también es largo y cuando tienes a una persona que lleva años contigo, pues se valora mucho la formación. Transformación digital no va alineado en la formación. O sea, a lo mejor tú tienes a una persona más mayor que más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo, ¿no? Sí. Pues, y a lo mejor pierdes todo ese conocimiento por no haberle dado una buena formación cuando has metido un nuevo programa o algo. Entonces, eso es muy delicado porque puedes perder el conocimiento que tienes si no van todo el equipo o toda la empresa un poco de la mano alineada y con formación.
Sí, y al final es un tema de personas, es un tema de cariño y es un tema de cercanía, de empatizar con la persona, de entenderlo. Y con unos hay que tener, algunos departamentos vas mucho más rápido y otros departamentos vas un poquito más lento, pero no pasa nada, al final todos llegaremos.
Even
Absolutely.
Even and Thomas, you have mentioned several challenges related to the digitalization process. One of them was cybersecurity. It has been now raised. Another one is about training and helping people to get into the process and to provide, to contribute, providing value to the process. You have also mentioned, but I would like to know your opinion about how important is also skills and diversity in the managerial teams. I remember in the meeting we had several weeks ago. Also, I was talking about this research about the digital economy and so on. One of the issues was that was raised in the meeting was that it's good to have people in the team with kind of mixed skills, not only digital, not only business, but people who is good at combining both digital skills together with business skills, with specific knowledge of the company and so on. What is your experience regarding this diversity of profiles in the managerial team or the board of directors and so on?
I mean, absolutely. You just hit it. You just hit the ground. It's crucial for companies to have this kind of transmitters and people who can make tech and non-tech people speak to each other. You just, let me draw a parallel. We just had the COP23 in Dubai where you had all white people. They couldn't agree on anything. Same goes for UN, and same goes for a simple company. When you have old male board of family business, what do they know about digital? And if you have one descendant or two descendants who maybe went to a good school in an engineering degree, can speak to them, but still it will be very difficult to convince. Absolutely, 100%. You need a mix of different backgrounds, the mix of different not only skills but also cultures, experiences. Because if you would have only engineers in a room or only corporates in a room, it will be a completely different outcome if you would mix both of them and maybe bring a painter or someone else from completely different background. Because if you have 100% consensus or 80%, 90%, there's no clear direction where you would go. You always need to struggle, especially when it comes to digital, in order to identify a consensus. And I would advise for companies, if they, of course, have this kind of luxury. For example, in Pixar, they have what is called creative boards. So they have very reputable members of a company who sit on a separate board and overlook all the creativity and creativity in digital IT things. So I would advise companies to have some kind of, you don't need to assign a new officers on here and there, but have few quite a few experts, preferably from a different company, if you can, non-family business related, non-your family business related, so it would give you a fresh, bold view of what you are doing and where do you stand, and not to have only, and try not to have a yes man, so would always approve whatever you do. So have people who can criticize, can raise their voice, and constructively tell you where you should improve and where you should go with your strategy. Of course, it's not a luxury for a small and medium size, but still, you always can find a mentor from a different company, from universities, that can give you an outside perspective, fresher view on your digital assessment of your company and your strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. I would say there's a long tradition of research on the effect of diversity on innovation, creativity, and so on. And it all shows that, to a certain degree, diversity improves the creativity and the novelty of the outcomes. However, there's also research that shows that this is like a inverted U-curve effect, where it goes up with increasing diversity, and then at a certain point it may even go down again, because if diversity is too high, then you have to somehow deal with it or manage it. And I think from what our study showed with the particularities of family firms, with lots of heterogeneity inside these firms, many stakeholders, then you may have like an advisory board that has a say. You have people who are in charge. You have people with very different degrees of knowledge about digital technologies. Then you have people with more strategic view about the firm, and so on. So I would say it is good to have these different perspectives. So a typical example, you have a family firm which is currently transforming from one generation to another. The next generation was educated in a more digital area, maybe with background in VC and startups and so on. And then this knowledge is combined with the organization knowledge of the father or of the previous generation. And so I think that is an ideal setup where these two perspectives come together and can be nicely aligned. But there's still this danger that if in a family firm, those different perspectives are not well connected, then it creates more kind of a situation of tension. So I would say diversity is good, but you need to well manage it. As I said, we saw in many companies that these bridge builders, those promoters of digitalization, who are somehow able to speak both languages. Those of the ones who are more inclined or more related to the tradition of the firm and are a little bit maybe also in their decision making more conservative. Those that promote digitalization. And so this is the thing, you need to bring it together. And so, diversity management mechanisms is something you should have. In what way, I don't know, but you need to get these people talking to each other.
Yo estaba pensando, cuando les escuchaba a los profesores, un tema que me ha parecido muy importante es el tema de la dificultad de atraer talento con capacidades digitales a las empresas en general y a las empresas familiares en particular, para que actúen en cierto modo de dinamizadores, ¿no?, de todos estos procesos de digitalización o de simplemente materializadores de que las cosas se puedan hacer, ¿no?, de que efectivamente las ideas que puedas tener se puedan llevar a la práctica porque tienes gente con capacidades para hacerlo, ¿no? A mí me gustaría conocer vuestras experiencias en este plan. Hace 10 días hemos presentado un estudio que ha hecho la cátedra sobre cómo percibe el estudiante universitario a la empresa familiar como potencial empleador. Y hay una brecha muy grande porque hay muchos estereotipos muy interiorizados en los estudiantes sobre las dificultades para tener un desarrollo de carrera, las dificultades, la posibilidad de tener unos salarios, la expectativa de que sus salarios van a ser no tan altos como podrían ser en el de otras empresas quizás no familiares. Hay una serie de estereotipos muy marcados que muchas veces no son ciertos, pero que el estudiante los percibe así, ¿no? Y este talento que queremos atraer al mundo empresarial, a mí me gustaría conocer un poco vuestra experiencia, cómo manejáis esto, ¿no? ¿Qué hacéis para dotaros de personas con capacidades y con actitudes adecuadas?
Esa es una buena pregunta. A ver, para mí la empresa familiar tiene cosas buenas y cosas malas, como todo, evidentemente. Pero al final la empresa familiar no deja de ser una empresa profesional. O sea, yo entiendo que hay empresas de más y menos tamaño, y una empresa de 1000 trabajadores a lo mejor tienes más posibilidades de poder ir creciendo que una empresa de 15 trabajadores, porque al final cuando son 15 son 15, pero no es una separación entre familiar y no familiar. O sea, al final, en la empresa familiar yo creo que lo que se tiene es que se vive todo como más intenso, ¿vale? Un fracaso es un fracaso más intenso, un éxito se comparte más y es... O sea, la gente, digamos que su trabajo resalta más en una empresa familiar que a lo mejor en una multinacional. Pero hay empresas familiares muy potentes. Se ha puesto ejemplo de empresas suizas de primer nivel. En España hay empresas de mucho nivel. Y lo bonito, además, que en una empresa familiar tú ves cómo vas creciendo. O sea, yo, en caso de Lalles, tú coges Lalles hace, pues, no sé, hace 15 años, que tenía un nivel de facturación más bien pequeño, con 25 trabajadores, y ahora pues pasamos los 60 y pico millones con más de 100 trabajadores y demás, pues la gente que ha estado y que ha entrado, muy importante la transformación digital, viene a colación el tema, pero evidentemente no se hacen las mismas cosas hace 15 años que ahora en marketing, en control de producción, automatización. O sea, nosotros, yo digo que, por ejemplo, en Lalles, que nosotros hemos automatizado la producción, la tenemos 100% automática. No, o sea, por la productividad está bien, evidentemente, te hace ganar más dinero, ser más rentable, pero en nuestro caso es por la calidad. Nuestros clientes, para ellos es fundamental suministrar un producto en calidad, condiciones, más importante que otra cosa, y la automatización a nosotros nos permite ser muy buena calidad. ¿Qué vengo a decir con todo esto? Que hemos crecido, hemos fichado talento, hemos venido gente que ha venido de multinacionales y están muy contentos porque se sienten que están más valorados. Hay gente que ha venido y a lo mejor no le hemos podido dar lo que ha querido, porque en todas las casas cuecen habas y le intentan hacer lo mejor posible y a veces lo consigues y a veces en algunos departamentos no. Pero yo creo que la gente tiene que apostar por la empresa. Si la dirección está por formar, por invertir, porque hay que invertir para crecer, porque si no es imposible, invertir en I+D, en inteligencia, en automatización, en inteligencia artificial y demás, la empresa familiar es muy divertida y muy emocionante.
El tema de la captación de personal es complicado. Nosotros en nuestra zona lo tenemos bastante difícil. Aparte, nosotros no estamos, por ejemplo, no estamos en Valencia, no estamos en Alicante, estamos en Alcoy, que a nivel de comunicación hemos sido bastante nefastos.
Solo por contextualizar, Alcoy is a place in the south of Valencia, between Valencia and Alicante. It's also a mountain part. It is kind of Switzerland, but with a different style.
Entonces, ahí la única forma... Bueno, tenemos la suerte de que tenemos las dos universidades, la UPV, la de Alicante, luego aparte tenemos AITES, Centro Tecnológico, aparte ahora también del mundo cosmético. O sea que Alcoy siempre ha sido una ciudad que es muy potente a nivel de creación de empresas y de mover mucho el tema. Pero sí que es verdad que notamos también que hay una falta de profesionalización, o sea, de personal para determinados puestos de trabajo. Hay mucho licenciado, mucho con máster, pero también lo que muchas veces las empresas necesitamos es la parte de formación profesional, y eso sí que vemos que hay un déficit. Y luego, en el tema de que al final nosotros lo que optamos, ya hemos optado por formarles nosotros internamente. O sea, intentar capacitar determinados puestos de trabajo que no encontramos personal, pues decidimos formarlos nosotros y capacitarlos nosotros. También es una forma de que gente que a lo mejor tenía un nivel de estudios más bajo, pues lo capacitamos y le damos una promoción dentro de la empresa, que también es una forma de que la gente eso lo aplaude mucho dentro de las empresas familiares, de cualquier empresa, no solo familiar. Y luego pues tienes aparte, tienes el salario emocional, hay que jugar también con la parte del salario emocional. Tú en empresas familiares normalmente somos más cercanos, la transparencia, la cercanía, la familiaridad, pues todo eso, tú no eres un número. Tú eres tal, que tienes tantos hijos, que conoces a tu familia, que tal. Entonces, eso también hace a la hora de poder resolver problemas, de poder ayudar, esa cercanía. Y eso hay que ponerlo en valor. Hay que poner en valor las personas. Y las empresas familiares somos muy de personas. Y eso es un valor muy fuerte que tenemos nosotros. Y eso, al final, la gente, con los tiempos que corre, yo creo que lo empiezan a valorar muy mucho. Y eso lo tenemos que tener y venderlo. También tenemos que saber vender. Está claro que la gente quiere un buen salario, un buen horario, que tengas facilidades para entrar, para salir. Pero es que yo creo que eso a fecha de hoy, cualquier empresa que tenga un poquito de responsabilidad social corporativa, lo hace. O sea, nosotros, por ejemplo, tenemos un horario maravilloso. Salen a las 3, entran a las 7, tienen facilidad de entrada y salida. Los viernes por la tarde no trabajan, en verano hacemos jornada intensiva, vacaciones, o sea, tienes muchos temas de adaptación por hijos. Nosotros, por ejemplo, tenemos a nivel de empresa un tema de cuando las mujeres que se quedan embarazadas a partir de entre la semana 20 y la semana 25, tenemos un acuerdo con la mutua que luchamos muchísimo y lo conseguimos, que ellos cobran el 100%, se van de baja a casa desde la semana 20, entre la semana 20 y 25, suele ser solo la semana 23, cobran el 100% del salario, porque eso lo luchamos mucho con la mutua por el tema del ruido, y están desde la semana 20-23 y vuelven después de la lactancia, cobrando el 100% del salario. Y son cosas que vas intentando luchar y que vas intentando hacer para que la gente también quiera aportar su valor dentro de las empresas, que es muy importante.
Sí, déjame comentar al hilo de esto, que en ese estudio que os estaba comentando, que os habla de los estereotipos, pero también había aspectos positivos y precisamente estos son puntos fuertes que se detectan de una manera especial o que se perciben de una manera especial en la empresa familiar. Las posibilidades de conciliación, el cuidado, la cercanía con el trato con el empleado, el trato humano. Es decir, había muchos aspectos que salían incluso por encima de lo que ellos esperarían en una organización hipotéticamente ideal. Es decir, que un poco en este sentido es interesante que bueno, el talento es difícil de atraer a la empresa familiar, pero es quizás más fácil de retener, ¿no? Porque,
sí, pero yo no creo que sea tanto por la empresa familiar. Yo creo que también va mucho por el tipo de empresa y por el tamaño de empresa. También, porque claro, nosotros somos una pequeña empresa, nosotros tenemos 150 trabajadores. Está claro que tú puedes escalar. Yo tengo gente dentro de promoción interna que empezaron bajo en la planta. Es verdad que tenían estudios, pero por circunstancias pues no había puesto. Pero cuando dio una vacante, escalaron arriba y están en puestos de mandos intermedios, o sea, y al final eso se valora porque eso se ve. Pero es verdad que a lo mejor en grandes empresas multinacionales que tienen más los departamentos son más grandes, pues sí, a lo mejor el tema de escalar dentro de la empresa pues es más rápido, pero...
You have mentioned in your presentations that also the difficulties to attract talent to family firms is especially difficult. And it's good to see that that's not a Spanish problem. So that is something that also happens in Germany, also happens in Switzerland. Is your perception similar to what they are mentioning here?
Yes. I could say I'm doing seminars together with family firms where students engage for like practical questions of those family business leaders. And during the last 2 years, the topic attracting digital talent was always a big part of it. And so it's really interesting to see what's going on, how much companies now have to invest to get those people in general, how much additional benefits are offered. But we also see, and that's in line with what has been said before, that most family firms, and I kind of agree. It's not only the family, but it's the type of firm. They are considered to be attractive employers. Because there's this degree of familiarity. People really care for each other, and although there is like a tough competition going on for those digital talents, with additional money and remote work and all those things that are offered, the companies I was talking to often say, sometimes employees leave, but they are often coming back because they recognize these additional values that are not written down in the contract. So I think that is really a benefit. However, one thing we see is that often family businesses are located in areas that are not so attractive. So that's an issue to companies have to deal with. So remote work, so the post-COVID phase has changed a bit, so that employees may not necessarily have to be on site all of the time. And what we also see regarding digital talent, that many family businesses actually opened up, like for instance, smaller offices, where they are working on digital ideas or work with startups, or so, in the more in the nicer areas. So for instance, then in Berlin or in Cologne also. So I know quite a few companies, family firms, who have their locations really more in the countryside, but who said, okay, digitalization may not necessarily have to take place there. And therefore they opened up these specialized entities in areas where those people who are more socialized in the startup scene and who have these digital competencies say, okay, we are more happy to work there.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely agree, 100% that incentives matter, and we live in a dramatic age. Credit Suisse cuts 5,000 jobs, Google cuts 10,000 jobs. Who cares? This is just an employee, this is just a developer. And for sure, family business have an intimate relationship with an employee, but unfortunately, most of the times it's very badly advertised because of these attitudes. People think that family business is something archaic. It's not. So it should be, we should emphasize and educate our students when nowadays they care about sustainability, they also care about a good workplace to work for. And not necessarily money-wise, but also location-wise, manager-wise, and other characteristics. So what I saw, not that much in Switzerland, but some French conglomerates, family business conglomerates, they relocate to remote I would say not village, but a small city town where people and their employees come with a huge pleasure as compared to living in Paris with all the hustle and cost of living in Paris, going somewhere in a nice medieval town in the south or middle of France. So that's how people, that's how family businesses attract their employees. Even seeing this mountain, which Spanish mountain may be a small paradise. You don't have a hustle of Valencia. I've been here for a few days, but there are some tensions to living in a big city. As long as you are young, maybe you enjoy. When you have a family and kids, you prefer more remote, more nature, and more intangible aspects of your job. And of course, much more youngsters don't want to work for Goldman Sachs or BCG or KPMG, you name it, because of crazy work schedules and complete burnouts. It's not nothing new. So I think family businesses have a lot to offer. They just need to promote themselves more and more, especially when we speak about small and medium size, that they have very low visibility, and it can be easily done through job fairs at the universities or any kind of events where you have, and also word of mouth. When you work for a good family, tell your networks that there are companies who value, and you don't need to work for Google to have a nice flexible work schedule and good remuneration, and also very close relationship with owners, with managers.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Una última pregunta antes de pasar a abrir un poco el turno para el público, sobre todo para vosotros dos, Consuelo y Carlos. Vosotros tenéis una actividad empresarial que tiene una exposición internacional importante en los dos casos. En todos estos procesos, ¿qué impacto ha tenido esa exposición internacional? ¿Qué habéis aprendido? ¿Qué estáis aprendiendo de vuestros competidores, de vuestros proveedores, de vuestros clientes en otros países que os motivan y que os ayudan a desarrollar todas estas iniciativas?
Te dejo a ti a la primera. A ver.
Digitalización. Nosotros con los clientes, es verdad que nosotros hicimos una plataforma que le llamamos lo que es el centro. Nosotros tenemos un centro de tecnificación en la empresa porque nosotros tenemos que formar mucho a nuestros clientes sobre la utilización de nuestro producto, a los distribuidores o a la profesional, a la esteticista, peluquera. Entonces, a nivel nacional y a nivel internacional tenemos un centro de tecnificación en el cual podemos retransmitir en streaming de forma directa y con traducción simultánea en diferentes idiomas y que se adapte incluso la visión y todo lo que estamos haciendo a los diferentes, si es un móvil, una tablet, un ordenador. Y entonces para nosotros eso, con ellos nos interactuamos muy bien con ellos a la hora de conocer las necesidades formativas, las necesidades de producto y también nosotros poder trasladarle todas nuestras necesidades. Y a la vez con nuestros clientes, sobre todo en Estados Unidos, es la conexión que tenemos con ellos porque tiene que ser diaria, con sistemas cerrados, trabajamos con VPN para que no se pierda el dato, porque al final ellos lo que te exigen es una cercanía continua. Entonces, por medio de la digitalización y por medio de este sistema que tenemos del centro de tecnificación, esa cercanía con el cliente extranjero la tenemos mucho. Entonces, ellos lo agradecen mucho y nosotros también, porque es una forma de interactuar y de formarles y enseñarles.
En nuestro caso, como yo he dicho antes, para la gracia de exportar a 39 países es la calidad del producto, ¿vale? O sea, para nosotros la calidad es sagrada y entonces el producto funciona en los distintos países. Eso sí, ya cada país tiene sus costumbres y a veces lo digo en plan de broma, pero es que cuando voy a Alemania mi socio me invita a cenar a su casa a las 6:30. Hostia, Patrick, a las 6:30, pero si acabo de comer, joder. Entonces, cada país es distinto, tiene sus costumbres distintas, pero sí que es importante al final que a nivel automatización, a nivel control, nosotros tenemos un sistema, o sea, a la hora de... Nosotros tenemos aquí la planta totalmente automatizada, el sistema de control de Alemania es totalmente automatizado y entonces el centro técnico lo tenemos en Valencia. O sea, los directores de departamento de esta en Valencia son directores de departamento de las plantas y demás. Entonces, sí que podemos tener el control de todas las producciones, de todos los escalados, de todos los datos en tiempo real para, si necesitamos hacer algún cambio, alguna modificación o hacer lo que sea. A nivel comercial, independientemente de todos los países, sí que entendemos que para vender en Italia necesitas un italiano, para vender en Alemania un alemán, o sea, a nivel general puede ir un director comercial general, pero al final los del país conocen a los del país. Entonces, lo que hacemos es nuestro sistema de ventas, nuestra gestión de ventas, nuestra gestión de marketing, es una única, pero ya un poco o sea, es un RP único, es todo único, donde todo el mundo entra a meter la información o a coger lo que se necesita, pero a su estilo, ¿no? Llamémoslo así, o con sus costumbres. Y eso es un poco donde nosotros hemos utilizado todo el tema de transformación digital.
Bien, muchas gracias. Bueno, me gustaría abrir un poco el turno de preguntas también al público, si hay alguien que quiera hacer alguna pregunta, alguna comentario, sugerencia, idea, duda. Juan.
No sé si
se oye,
funciona el micrófono.
Sí.
Bueno, muchas gracias a los cinco. En realidad tengo dos preguntas. Si el tiempo da, las contestáis y no lo dejamos. La primera es para Consuelo y para Carlos. Cuando empezasteis este viaje de transformación digital, ¿teníais una definición clara de éxito? ¿Sabíais lo que buscabais? ¿Y teníais un business case claro? ¿Sabíais los costes que queríais afrontar, los beneficios que queríais conseguir, bien por reducción de costes o por incremento de ventas? Esta es la primera pregunta. And the second is for you, for both professors. Along your research, to what extent have you found that if there is any correlation between having a clear picture of success, having clear metrics of clear KPIs of success, and the overall success of the transformation in terms of increasing performance, both either in cost or in top-line growth? Estas son las dos preguntas. Gracias.
Nosotros cuando planificamos, cuando hemos planificado la segunda fase, ¿no? la segunda fase de digitalización, que nosotros estamos en ello, estamos trabajando en ello porque queremos hacer lo que es la planta visual de la eliminación 100% del papel, sí que está planificado y tenemos una estrategia clara y sabemos cuáles son los objetivos y por qué queremos hacer este cambio o este incremento de digitalización más en planta y en otros procesos. Sobre todo en la parte, para nosotros en planta es por el tema de eliminación total del papel, para control máximo de trazabilidad y eliminar errores humanos que se pueden crear. Y luego en otros terrenos, como es la parte de mejorar en la parte de CRM o mejorar en la parte de, por ejemplo, nosotros abrimos, no era nuestro nicho de mercado, porque nosotros siempre hemos vendido directamente, hemos vendido al distribuidor, no teníamos venta directa al cliente final. Pero a raíz de la pandemia, vimos que necesitábamos, teníamos la página web, pero no le habíamos dado mucha cancha. Y a partir de ahí, es otro nicho de mercado, tenemos otra vertiente del negocio en la que estamos trabajando y todo eso tenemos que planificarlo muy bien. O sea, tenemos que tener claro los objetivos. No podemos decir, no, ahora de vender cero, vamos a vender este año. No, porque tenemos que controlar también todo el tema mucho de gastos, porque todo muy presupuestado, todo muy controlado, pero en el momento de la digitalización siempre se va. Siempre hay problemas, siempre esto pensábamos que sí conectaba pero no conecta, entonces tenemos que meter otro programa. O sea, al final tienes que tener también ahí decir, bueno, tengo que tener esto por aquí porque sé que me van a salir problemas. Y luego te dicen que eso en un año, imposible. 2 años, 2 años y medio. O sea, que al final sí, dentro de lo que se puede planificar y hacer el seguimiento.
En nuestro caso sí, o sea, teníamos un plan general, pero luego es lo que ha dicho ella, al final luego te viene una pandemia o luego te viene el OE, te dice que estás perdiendo productividad en algún sitio o algo y al final tú tienes un plan generalizado de lo que quieres llegar, pero luego el día a día, no el día a día, sino el análisis de los datos te hace ir tomando unas decisiones u otras. En nuestro caso también te diré que nos hemos pegado tortas muy grandes con esto de la transformación digital. O sea, nosotros hemos contratado programas, nos hemos gastado el dinero y a día de hoy ni se utilizan porque no lo hemos sabido meter a la gente, no lo hemos sabido introducir o lo que hemos contratado a veces te da respeto el tema de transformación digital y dices, va, pues no me voy a gastar tanto, voy a hacer una pequeña inversión para ver si esto va o no va. Pues las pequeñas inversiones al final suelen estallar y al final es una castaña. O sea, o lo haces o no lo haces. Esa es mi recomendación después de las tortas que nos hemos pegado.
En eso también estoy de acuerdo. Que es verdad que lo único que pasa es que muchas veces los presupuestos que te plantean, los costes de la digitalización son tan grandes que te dan miedo y como a veces, y claro, meterse en ese mundo, dices, vamos a ver, por dónde, pero tío, yo creo que lo importante para mí es encontrar un buen partner.
Sí.
Fundamental. Como el partner no te funciona, la digitalización no funciona.
Ivan and,
Yes.
and Thomas.
Yes, so basically you asked about correlation between having a clear vision and performance. I would say that as our family business guests have mentioned, there are some studies who argue that you need to have a clear vision, but there are people who say there is a big role that ambidexterity plays in our life. So even taking your company, you heavily invest in AI in certain tasks, And you have an open AI, you have Google, you have Microsoft, you have someone there who, for you, it will take maybe a year and a half or 2 years. For them, will take a few weeks from now. They will release this kind of tool. So you must be willing to navigate and be flexible and agile within your investment. I know it sounds a bit ambiguous, but it is what it is, because if you are small, you cannot compete on certain things with big guys. For sure, it will bring you an economic benefit, at least in terms of optimization, cutting cost on certain tasks which were redundant before, and might make your company unicorn till a certain percentage, you never know. But at the same time, you're also exposed to risk with competing with many thousands of other companies in certain things where you do not know. And now regulation came first to Europe, and US, also Asia thinks about something, but the regulators always think about, they think about more. Unfortunately, it is what it is. In Brussels, there is a big industry lobby groups, so it always favors the big guys. So small guys are often neglected, so you need to think about your role and how you can, I would say, not to be driven till extreme extent by profits obtained by this technology, but being open to capitalize on it, and in some way, to a certain extent, also to deviate from your initial target, because things happen very drastically, very unexpectedly in last months and last years when we speak about these digital technologies. Yeah. I hope I answered.
I might just add one thing here, also related to the things that were said before. I think the problem with digital transformation, especially if we don't talk about digitalization, so things that are, from a return on invest perspective, more clearly plannable. But if we talk about digital transformation, developing new business models, there's a strong element of innovation in it. And innovation in general comes with uncertainty. It can be a great success, but it could also fail. Yeah, and so for this kind of digital transformation, having a clear business case and being able to really plan also long term in the future is much more difficult. Yeah, so our study showed that risk taking is a significant element of success, or of, I cannot say successful digital transformation, but the higher degree of digital transformation. And so this is just something you should be aware of. It's very difficult to say how high your return on invest on digital transformation will be at the end. It is just something that's quite likely. If you don't go in this direction, others may do it, and you may have a significant problem in the future. And so, but that's difficult. Yeah, you require lots of money, but you don't know what the return will be. Yeah, so it's just the understanding that if you don't digitalize a company, others will do. There will be startups that compete against you, and you may be kicked out of the market in the future.
Sí, yo añadiría que esto lo que queda un poco claro es que esto es un proceso. Es decir, que el proceso de transformación digital empieza por pasos, digamos, más pequeños, más concretos, más específicos, quizás menos visibles, y conforme se va alcanzando esa madurez digital, se puede uno ir planteando objetivos más ambiciosos y más complejos. Entonces, al final, empezasteis hace muchos años, y entonces vas dando pasos y vas progresando, vas madurando en tu desarrollo digital y vas planteándote aspectos más ambiciosos y cada vez más específicos, porque tienes más claro, ves mejor la potencialidad que te puede aportar esa transformación, ¿no? Entonces, al principio lo haces un poco por necesidad. Una de las recomendaciones que salían estas dinámicas de grupo que hicimos hace poco tenía que ver con empezar con cosas muy específicas que tengan un resultado tangible. Es decir, si tú mejoras tu productividad, eso tiene un resultado tangible. Entonces, ya vas viendo un resultado. Y a partir de ahí puedes pasar a otro nivel y luego otro más y luego otro más. Y llegas a un nivel en el que ya te puedes plantear proyectos más ambiciosos donde involucras a una mayor parte de la organización, donde involucras a un mayor número de unidades y los resultados empiezan a ser más notables, ¿no? Pero es un proceso que no termina nunca, y que cada día, porque la tecnología evoluciona a una velocidad que nos sobrepasa, ¿no? Entonces, ese paso a paso es el que te va llevando hacia el camino de mantenerte en el nivel de alta competitividad, que es lo que al final todos buscamos. I would like to thank you very much for your participation and for transferring your knowledge to us in this session. Gracias, Carlos. Gracias, Consuelo, por compartir con nosotros vuestra experiencia en este ámbito. Y llega el momento de cerrar la sesión. Me gustaría invitar a Hortensia Roig, que ha venido a saludarnos al final de la jornada para... Bueno, pues Hortensia, muchas gracias por venir.
Good morning, everybody. Well, better good afternoon, because it's 1 o'clock. So it's been for us, for EDEM and Marina de Empresas, a really nice pleasure to host the meeting family business around the world here. Thank you for the organization, to the chair of family business of the Universidad de Valencia that promotes with us this chair, and as well thank you to ABE, IBEFA, and of course to our sponsors, CaixaBank and Broseta, for all the help and support. Well, I hope that today you have learned about from digitalization success stories of companies and countries as Switzerland and Germany. As you have heard today throughout the whole morning, digitalization is one of the main challenges for any companies who wants to grow and move forward in the future. But especially as well for family business members, because in the DNA, in addition of growing, we have the vision and the commitment to the continuity of the business project. I also want to say one of the things I have learned over the years in my role, in my paper, as being a member of a family business called Mercadona. It's a retail family business all over Spain, quite strong, and Portugal. I'm also president of this business school of EDEM. From time to time, I'm a teacher in business forums and attendee to some of them. So, and what I have learned is that the longest lasting family business are not those who have not problems or challenges, are those who are able to solve them easier and quicker than others. Is the way to make them last. Today, I also hope that you came up with new ideas to make your family business as long-lasting as possible. Because in recent years, some of the trends have accelerated, and now we all have to talk about artificial intelligence, data, cybersecurity, and sustainability. The present now is much complex as well for the family business, but due to our special predisposition to work in the long term, we have full capacity to solve them, because we bring together the strength of tradition and the innovation, and we are the motor of the economy in all our countries. Here in EDEM and Marina de Empresas, we learn that we can grow because we're close to companies. And our mission as Marina de Empresas, this half of entrepreneurship, that it comes from being a hub of entrepreneurship that includes the business school, the accelerator, and the business angels. So we say that we cover the complete circle of entrepreneurship, learning, investment, and acceleration. So our mission is to promote talent so that we can help the business fabric to be stronger. Okay? And in other words, we want to be the factory of companies and enterprises in Spain, from Spain to the world. Okay? So, and you can ask me, why do you do this, Hortensia? Because companies, we believe that spin the wheel of economy, and they make our country to move forward. So thank you very much. and see you soon.
Muchas gracias, Hortensia. Bueno, tenemos un café, unos refrescos aquí arriba esperando para todos para poder hacer un poquito de networking. O sea que estáis todos invitados a participar ahora. Y si nos importa a los ponentes y a los promotores venir y nos hacemos una foto de recuerdo, a picture. We can take a picture all together. Yeah. Yeah. We can maybe take this out.